4 weeks ago on the Feast of the Ascension, I spoke about the 4 gifts that Christ promises his believers, promises his church. His Word, the Spirit, which we celebrated on Pentecost with gusto, the Eucharist, which we celebrate today in a particular way, and also his mother, Mary, who is given to all on the cross, a spiritual mother. In his last encyclical, John Paul II called the Eucharist the greatest gift that the church has down through the ages. The greatest gift. It is the gift of Jesus' body and blood, his real presence. And we know Thomas Aquinas, who was the source of the sequence that we sang, and I had forgotten that we were singing a sequence, so I got up early for the gospel. There is no other saint in our tradition who has taught more beautifully on the nature and gift of the Eucharist than St. Thomas Aquinas. This is what he says, not necessarily in the sequence, but in another writing. O precious and wonderful banquet that brings us salvation and contains all sweetness. He then goes on to say, could anything be of more intrinsic value? The saints of our 2 millennia tradition would say no. This is the great gift of Jesus, his body and blood. The Eucharist, in the readings, we hear in the second reading, Paul says it commemorates the saving death of the Lord. It commemorates the saving death and resurrection. And Paul's use, as I said on Holy Thursday, of the word remembrance is not an ordinary remembrance where we recall something like a trip or something that was important in our lives, but rather it's described in the Greek as anamnesis. This is a sacred remembrance where we are made present to Calvary, and the mystery of salvation is made present right here at the Basilica of St. Mary in the Eucharist that we celebrate. It's why, and listen as I pray, now pray, but also listen, why I pray referring back to Calvary in the Eucharistic prayer in the present tense. It's an extraordinary belief and teaching of the Catholic Church, and it happens to be true. And many have testified with their lives. Pope Leo the 14th, Pope Leo the 14th was in Rome, and God bless him, in the Roman heat, he made a procession from the Lateran Basilica, St. John Lateran, and we, by the way, have the only copies of the statues anywhere, Johann tells me, in the world, those beautiful statues that flank the nave of St. John Lateran, to St. Mary Major, with the Eucharist, a Eucharistic procession. How beautiful, our 69-year-old Pope in the Roman heat. What a great testament to what we celebrate. And this is what he said in his Angelus prayer and message from Rome today. The Lord receives, sanctifies, and blesses the bread and wine that we place on the altar, together with the offering of our lives, and he transforms them into the body and blood of Christ, a sacrifice of love for the salvation of the world. A sacrifice of love for the salvation of the world. We hear similar action verbs, right, in the gospel today. Jesus takes the bread, right, so they don't go hungry. He blesses it, he breaks it, and he gives it. This is what happened at the Last Supper. This is what happens in every Eucharist that has ever been celebrated. It is the gift of Jesus himself, but he invites us to share, to give what we have. One of the things that I would encourage you to do at the offertory, in addition to helping support the Basilica, even more importantly, is to spiritually offer your lives. To say to the Lord, I'm going to place my life and everything I have on your altar. Do with me what you will for the good of the church and to the glory of God. That's a beautiful way that we can approach the offertory. So one of the things that we see in the tradition is this idea of Eucharistic processions. Today we'll contain our procession in the church, but at the end of Mass at the baptismal font, I will go out and bless the city. with the Eucharist, to bless the city of Minneapolis. Indeed, I will offer this Mass for our city, for its restoration and its flourishing, and that we would be a part of that work to really lift up the city of Minneapolis and be a leaven for good. And I think doing those processions are so important. Last year, we had the National Eucharistic Procession here, one of the 4 routes here on the day before Memorial Day, and you could see the pictures in the Catholic spirit, the throng of people on Summit Avenue as they processed to the cathedral. A beautiful testament to our faith, and I hope Eucharistic processions will be part of our tradition outside going forward. So finally, friends, how can we respond to such a great gift? The gift of the Eucharist. I'm going to offer a couple of different ways. First of all, to understand that we are called to have a disposition of openness, open hearts, and that goes for me as well as a priest. I can become apathetic or sometimes indifferent to the awful mystery, meaning awe-filled mystery of the Eucharist. To have a heart wide open to its effect, and to know, firstly, that it can transform our very lives into the image of Christ whom we consume. That it has a transformative power. Think of the saints, or think of the sinners who became saints, all of them very close to the Eucharist. It has a dynamic reality. It is not static in mystery or reality. Secondly, to offer our lives and to live a Eucharistic life, a life poured out for others, a life poured out in service, in sacrifice, in generosity. What would that life look like? There are so many of you who live that already, but we are called more and more to imitate what we receive, to the pattern of Jesus, to pour out our lives for others as we receive the Eucharist. And particularly to be mindful of the poor and the downtrodden, to see in them the same image of Christ as we receive in the Eucharist. And then finally, to make sure that this hour is the most important hour of our week. There is nothing more important than this Eucharistic liturgy in the life of faith as Catholics. Do we prioritize that? Yes, you're here, but do we prioritize it every week? I love the fact that people join us on live stream. I hear many stories, including relatives, my godfather, my father, others who watch in. But if we're able to be present here, we live a sacramental and tangible faith to receive the body and blood of Christ, to prioritize. One of the reasons why we're hopefully going to raise and restore this church at a great cost is because, friends, there is nothing more sublime in all the world that takes place than in a Catholic church in the celebration of the Eucharistic liturgy, where Christ gives us his body and his blood, where we experience a foreshadowing of heaven. This is the antidote to everything that this world is presently being crushed by. The love, the grace, the sacrifice, the goodness of God, it is all experienced in the Eucharist that we are given.